Phillies Braves. Big series.
Was it longer practice today?
I couldn't tell you how long the practice was today. Honestly, it didn't seem long to me.
Where are you at with that place here? And has Tristan been able to kind of go full go now?
He's not 100%. He's kicking the ball really well. I think he'll make it for the first game. Johnny Holt's kicking the ball really well. So I think between those two, Nico's making a lot of kicks too. But we're going to let that thing play out for another couple days here before we do anything. So, but I would say Tristan's probably 90% right now. But he's really starting to hit the ball. He hit more ball. He kicked balls yesterday, and he hit a larger quantity of balls at full speed. A quantity probably that's really close to, Coach and I being comfortable with, seeing what he can do. Really, testing him with some things next couple days.
If he's 100%, is it his job, or is it still no? He's got to win.
It's always a competition to me. And the thing about the kicker is it's quantifiable. So we can do the percentages. I don't really want to go into those percentages with you right now, but they're close. It's really close, and they're making most of their kicks, which is good. So both guys are making a lot of kicks, so it's. But we're going to let that thing kind of take another couple days.
Tristan, is it a matter of getting into the point? When you say he's 90%, you mean he can do 90% of the work, or he can cut loose 90%?
Yeah, cutting loose is probably more of it. How many times is he comfortable to cut loose where he's just letting it rip? When you're used to seeing a Tristan ball in practice and he kicks one from 40, you're used to the film guys kind of ducking out of the way. He's hitting some balls like that, and he's hitting the ball well. But how many is he hitting? He's hitting more and more as he goes into it. So it's just a matter of getting him with a comfort level. Also, there's how far back can he go? So that's another thing that we're working on. That is coming a little bit slower because that's really completely based on his health. So there's that factor as well.
How long was John Hull on your radar when you discovered him this summer? Did you know about him for a long period of time? Did you anticipate him being this good to come in and compete?
Radar knowing him, a little bit, probably a year, and then but really seeing him do what he can do. Our camp, when he came in for the camp, and was working with our guys during the Matt Rule football camp, which was whatever that was, that second week in June, and he was a monster in that workout. I mean, he just looked really, really good. And
Can you measure John Hull has never kicked a game? Can you measure temperament? Do you even try to measure temperament, or just see how he does?
No, I mean it's not as random as see how he does, because through the course of that camp, he actually came to 2 camps. So to watch him make pressure kicks, and then he does the circuit, so he's out there with guys like Jamie Cole, and those are high pressure situations. So we've seen him in some high pressure situations in addition to what I saw with my own eyes. But to equate that to 87,000 in the stadium, no. I mean that's something that we have to see. It's kind of just like with what we did with Tristan last year.
Do you think Tristan would jump right back into kickoffs, or is that competition as well?
Yeah, I would say he'd be a little slower back to the kickoffs. He's just starting the approach on the kickoffs now. So, Brian's kicked off too. So the kickoff thing's a totally different conversation because of Brian. So, John's got a big enough leg to do that. And Brian's done it in games for us at a pretty high level. So I don't know, for me, and I can't speak for Matt Rule, but for me, I'm not going to put a lot of pressure on Tristan to hit a lot of kickoffs particularly early. There's not because of those other guys, it's actually a good situation. I'm not sitting there right now in practice being like, man, who's going to kick off for me? So I'm not really putting a lot of heat on him to do that, because I'm trying to put more, I'm not putting any pressure on him, but I'm trying to really examine more how he's hitting the 50-yarders and the 48-yarders, watching and observing that, and how does he look getting through that, and what does the result of those balls look like as opposed to the kickoffs. Nico's good. I mean, Nico's really done a good job kicking the ball for us. He's probably the 3rd guy right now. That competition would still be open for him, but I would say it's going to be, between those other 2 guys coming down the stretch here. We got IGC, as the punt returner, and Jacory's really done a good job in terms of tracking, and we're putting Jacory and Emmett Johnson into situations now where you know, they've got to make decisions with things like poison and you know, doing things down around the goal line, which is a little different. You know, when the ball's down around the goal line, there's different decisions that are need to be made. I would say, you know, IGC is probably a little bit ahead in terms of the decision making, but I'm personally comfortable. And Coach and I were talking about it, you know, the other day, and just how do we going to manage that, you know, moving forward. But I would not be surprised to see both of those guys, you know, returning punts for us. Both of those top two guys, and Emmett can do it too. All three of those guys really are guys that I think can go in a game and return punts for us. And I think that puts us in a better, you know, situation than we were last year. And, you know, when Emmett was good last year, but with the situation that we had at running back after that, you know, after that catastrophic week, he wasn't a guy that he was spending a lot of time doing other things. So, you know, I feel good about those guys out there.
How did you feel about the level of aggression with punt returns last year? Just level of aggression, just a number of returns, yardage, all that.
It was terrible. It's terrible. It falls directly on me. So I needed to do a way better job this year than I did last year with that whole unit from top to bottom. The punt returner is certainly part of that, you know, having the injury situations that we had. You know, understanding that IGC was the backup last year, and then Billy got hurt. So but the way that came down, you know, we got to do a way better job. You know, we got to come out of the games with an advantage in the net. You know, when you look at the punters, like if we're gaining, you know, 40 yards a punt, then, you know, this is a Tom Osborne thing, right? So Tom wanted to, and we want to gain 40 yards on a punt, and we want to have 30 yards that they're gaining on the punt because of the combination of pressure on the punter and returns that we're going to have. So the formula that Coach Osborne, you know, set up years and years ago is still very valid today for us. So we have to win. That's a must for us, and that's a goal that Coach and I have been talking about. You know, we've been talking about it since last December. So we have got to do a better job of that.
Okay. Is Emmett a kick return guy too, kickoff returns, or how does that position look?
Yeah, you know, the guy that makes things interesting on that is just Ramir Johnson. So Emmett's back there. Emmett's we have a returner and an off returner, so we have two returners back there. So, you know, Emmett's going to be back there. It's just a matter of whether he's the actual returner or not. You know, there's some schematics to that of trying to figure out where they're kicking it and putting the guy in the right spot. I'm not big on the schematics, so I'm not like having those guys look and see the direction of the kick and switch them. So if the ball gets kicked to Emmett, he's got to return it. He'll be one of the off returners that we'll have, and then, you know, Jacory's a factor in that as well. Jacory works his tail off, like he's out there. Like he really wants to be the returner, which is really great for a young guy. But it's also like there's an experience level. You know, we're working on some things just with all of them. But like, put your heels on the goal line, right? And you're not backing up. This is going to be a touchback. Or put your heels here, or put your heel. You know, we're fair catching this one. So those are all conversations that come into it, not just the dynamic ability of the returner. But Ramir Johnson, Jacory, Emmett, those are all guys that you'll see back there they're all doing a good job for us.
Is there an unsung member or two that impresses you within your teams that you think about?
You know, the guy that's doing a great job for me, and this is all I have to obviously get all this through Coach Rule, but like the young guy for me is Carter Nelson. Like Carter Nelson is a really, really good football player. Like we all know he's talented, but like he has a really good sense of how to play football. There's a sense of, you guys have heard me say this before, like on special teams, of knowing like how to position your body and how to set up for blocks, and you know how to and be obviously super competitive doing it. But he's shown to me like a lot of real discipline and really an understanding of very easy understanding of what we're trying to do on special teams. So he won't do anything glamorous, early on for us, but you'll see him out there for us. And for us, to play a true freshman tells you a lot about, his ability. The other guy that's the other unsung guy for me that's doing a really, really good job. And Coach lets me use starters, so like I don't need to tell you that, like Isaac Gifford's really good on the punt team. Like I think you probably already know that, but like Tavion Thompson is another guy for me that's really, and I've had my eye on him for a little bit, but he's really done a great job this camp of just, and again, nothing sexy that you're going to be like, boy, he's jumping off the film, but he's a really, really steady, consistent, like multiple team like Carter Nelson. They can play on multiple teams and be effective.
What's your timetable on August for when you set the teams that this guy's here, this guy's there?
There's only a couple of spots right now to me that are like wide open. And obviously, kicker being the pretty important one. But most of the other jobs are pretty secure, and it's a very secure feeling knowing that you have a couple of guys that can do the job. So like with Tavion, I mentioned Tavion. So Tavion and Stenger, Gage Stenger's doing a nice job too. So they've been playing on the right and left side of the punt team. I flipped them today for the first time just to see how they would handle being able to play the other side, because it's like everything's kind of flipped with the protection. So to be able to have that ability to flip guys at this point in the season and have those guys have some multiplicity has been really cool and a really good thing for our football team. So that might, allow us to take Isaac off of there and not miss a beat, because those guys can, play behind him, or they can play on the other side, so that depth chart's not 100% set, but I feel really good about it, And you got guys on that punt team like, Johnny Bullock's going to play on that team to start the season, and Mackay Bayer's going to be on that team, and Camden Watucky's doing a really good job snapping. So, but I think that probably 90% of the jobs that we're going to do against UTEP are pretty solidified right now. Thanks, guys.